Hi guys, and welcome to Nursing 3120. I'm sure this is probably the first time you've had to watch a video of the course introduction on the first day of class. But if you remember me from the summer, I have to be just a little bit different. In all seriousness, I do want to apologize for not being able to be there today. I am currently at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. My father-in-law had some medical issues these past few months, and we've had to life flight him back to Mayo. We're in the ICU. We left Macon on Saturday. So most of my day right now is being spent up in the ICU. But I didn't want to post written instructions, just kind of bland black and white written instructions. So I figured I would try to sit down and at least attempt to get something recorded for you, make it a little more personable. It's a little after midnight right now, but it seems to be the only quiet time I can get around here. I'm going to try in this introduction to go through the syllabus, the calendar, and give you a little bit of information about how this course is going to run. Give you a better idea of what to expect this term. I do want you to keep in mind that this is a brand new course and brand new at GSW anyway. And I basically developed this over the last couple of months, so this will be a kind of a trial period for it. I do try to keep things pretty organized, if you can remember, but there's going to be some times, because it is a new course, times like now where I'm not even on campus, that things might change. But I think you're going to like the course. It's got a lot of cool information, maybe a lot of things that you've never thought about when it comes to nursing. It's not just a computer course. I promise. When you say informatics, most people think, oh, it's a computer course. We'll deal with computers, but we'll really get into technology and how it affects patient care and how it affects nursing and why in the world you have to take it. So let's get started. Let me tell you what to expect, and then I will definitely be seeing you next week. Okay, so let's start with the syllabus information. Well, the first thing on there, other than the course name, is who am I? I think most of you will remember me from the summer. So I'm Dr. Michelle Dykes. There's my cell phone number. And I teach mostly the graduate program, so I'm not on campus very much. I'll be on campus mostly on Tuesdays. So if you need me any other day, there's my cell phone number. I would prefer that you would text me. And please be sure to tell me what course you're in so I don't get you confused with somebody else. And there's my email address. Office hours, I don't have any posted, again, because I'm not on campus that much. So if you need me, email me first or text message me. We'll either find a time to meet in person or we'll get on the phone with each other and talk. And since I'm on my laptop, I don't have any pictures of myself on the laptop, so I thought I would Google myself, the one thing you're not supposed to do. So if you Google me, this is the picture you find. This is our textbook. Please be sure you do have the 5th edition, as we will be doing activities right from the book. And these are our course objectives. Take a few seconds to read them, even pause this recording, so you can see what we're going to be looking at this semester. You can see we're not just looking at computers. So I know the first thing that you guys think about when you come into class is, what are we going to have to do to pass the class? What are our assignments going to be? What's going to be expected of us? So here's the basic breakdown of how we're going to be graded this term. We'll have weekly discussions, weekly quizzes, a reflective journal to complete, and then a group project, and then part of that project is you analyzing another group project. So you'll notice one thing that's not here, and that's exams. I know that sounds great to you, but we still have a lot of work to do every week. So when we get to the calendar, I'll explain a little bit more about these individually. As far as attendance goes, I'm not a big stickler on taking attendance. I personally believe that you're all adults and you know you're supposed to be in class. But with that being said, there are days that I may decide to take attendance, and there's days I may decide that it's not time to take attendance. You kind of run the risk of not showing up and that being the day that I take attendance. In our school, we have a policy that says you can miss no more than 20% of classes. In a 15-week course, that means 3 classes. If you miss more than 3 classes, your actual grade in the course will be dropped by 1 letter grade. If you're late to class, keep in mind that our classroom, for you to come in late, you actually have to walk past the front of the classroom where class is being held. So all the students have to watch you walk in. That's very disruptive to students. So if we've already started class and you're coming in late, I ask that you don't come in, that you wait outside until we take a break, and then you can come into class. That also means that you will miss the quiz for the day. So it's very important that you get there on time. If you have to leave early for any particular reason, come see me first if it's a verifiable reason. Then there'll be no docking of any points. If it's a reason that's not really verifiable, you will get docked at least a half a day of class. So if you have any questions about this, let me know. Again, I may take attendance one day, I may not. It just really depends. But if I do take attendance, you can't miss more than 3 days. The last thing I want to talk about as far as the syllabus goes is assignments, discussions, and quizzes, and when they're due. There's 2 actual written assignments in this class. One is going to be your reflective journal, which is going to be turned in a binder. The other is going to be your group project. They're all due on time. Anything that's turned in late will have a 10-point deduction from it, and that's if I can have it turned in late. Considering the fact that the reflective journal is due near the end of the course and the projects will actually be due on the day we have finals, odds are I'm probably not going to let you turn them in late. So please prepare ahead to get those things in on time. Throughout the semester, we're going to have several quizzes. If you look at the calendar, which we'll look at next, you'll see that you have one just about every week. As far as makeup for these quizzes, unless we have an extreme extenuating circumstance, there will be no makeup for these quizzes, and they will be given at the beginning of class. If you have an extenuating circumstance, get with me and we'll see what we can decide, keeping in mind that a makeup quiz may be given in a different type of format than the quiz that was given in class that morning. As far as discussions, you'll also see that those are due each week. Absolutely no leniency when it comes to discussions being turned in. They have a due date and time. For example, the initial posts are due by Wednesday night at midnight. Replies are due by Friday. Anything posted after midnight on Wednesday night, even at 12:01, will be considered late and will not be graded. Replies are the same way. Friday night by midnight, anything at 12:01 will not be graded. Keep in mind that Georgia View sometimes has downtimes, and sometimes they can fall on Friday nights. Look ahead at the schedule. They're usually scheduled downtimes, and plan around them. If there is an unscheduled downtime, something that happens out of the blue, then we'll take it at that point and see what we need to do. And the good news, as far as exams, there are none. Just remember that your final project is going to be a presentation that you do on the exam day, on final exam day. That is one day you cannot miss in this course. If you are absent on the day that the presentation is given by your group, you will get a 0 for the entire project submission. And there's a second portion to that project where you will evaluate other students' projects, and you will not be eligible to complete that. And if you look at the grading, the project itself, that group project, is worth 20% of your overall grade, and the evaluation is worth 5%. Keeping in mind, if you miss them that one day, you'll miss 25% of your grade, which makes your maximum grade in the course a 75%, meaning you'd have to get 100 on everything else. So pay attention to the calendar, which we'll go over a little bit of that next, because that's one thing I am a stickler on, is things being turned in on time. The calendar is pretty basic and should be easy for you to follow. You'll see that each week you have a weekly discussion, and we'll talk about those in just a few minutes on how those work. And the following week you have a quiz. Your weekly quizzes are related directly to the content in the weekly discussion the week before. So for example, in week 2, your weekly quiz is going to be based on the content that's discussed in the weekly discussions from week 1. Keep in mind that when we get down to the spring break area, your quiz in week 11 is going to be based on the weekly discussions back from week 9. So make sure you keep up with those discussions, even though it's going to be 2 weeks later. When we get down to week 15, that's your first big written assignment. That's your reflective journal. I do hope you keep up with that on a weekly basis, and we'll go over that in just a few minutes. On May the 2nd, which is technically week 16, your final exam is scheduled from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Being that we do not have a final exam in this course, you're going to be doing your project presentations in your group. And I'll go over the project presentations next week in class with you, so I can do that live and you can understand those a little bit better. Okay, so I did mention that we're doing weekly discussions in this course, and I know that doing weekly discussions can seem like a lot of work. Some of these discussions can be quite lengthy, but in this course you will be doing your discussions in groups of 5. I let Georgia View divide you into groups of 5, so they were random, and those group lists are posted in the course under group lists. So for this week, you want to get together with your other group members, and you want to go into the course under where it says discussions and quizzes information, and you'll see a document that gives an entire list of the discussions that are due for the entire semester. If you're in group 1, you will do question 1. If you are in group 2, you will do question 2. 3 will do 3, 4 will do 4, and of course 5 will do 5. All of the discussions are listed there into one document, so you can actually look ahead and plan ahead for future weeks. What you want to be sure is that for the discussions, that your initial post, keep in mind that that initial post is going to be a group post. It's going to be posted once, and your entire group will get the same grade. So here are some things you want to think about. The initial group post is worth 8 out of the possible 10 points. Your weekly discussions are worth 10 points. Your initial post is due no later than Wednesday night at midnight, and all group members will get the same grade. I do understand that sometimes group members don't participate and they don't want to reply to emails, they don't want to meet when groups meet. If you have a group member that's consistently not working with you to help participate, please get with me individually and we'll discuss what's going on. I don't want somebody to get full credit if they're not participating in the group. Like I mentioned before in the syllabus, any kind of a late submission, meaning anytime after Wednesday night at midnight, will result in the entire group getting no credit for the portion of the discussion. When you're posting your initial discussion, you want to make sure you start a new thread. You'll see each week has a discussion forum, so you'd go to week 1 and you'd click on the box that says start a new thread and you would answer your questions. You want to make sure that you actually type the question or questions that you're going to answer first and then post your answer below. Because remember, our quiz for the next week is going to be based on these discussions, and having the question and then the answers will help students study. Be absolutely sure that you've answered each component of your posted discussion question. Again, that initial post is worth 8 points. As far as the individual replies then, this is where you break apart from your group. The individual replies will count as 2 points of the possible 10, which means 1 point for each reply. You're going to reply back to another group post, another group discussion. It needs to be something with some substance to it, not just an I agree or that's a good point. Add a little bit more information to the conversation. Your replies are due no later than midnight on Friday night, and again, pay attention to those Georgia View downtimes. You're responsible for posting your own individual reply, therefore the reply grade will be graded individually. I'll add your initial group grade to your reply grade, and you'll get a grade out of a possible 10 points. When you're doing your individual replies, make sure that you're hitting the reply button and you're replying to a thread rather than starting a new thread. And again, make sure that you're using what we call netiquette. Make sure you watch your tone. Make sure that you're watching what you say, and make sure you're adding to the conversation. If at any point that you cite or you quote anything that's in your initial group post or your individual post, make sure you're citing it. I can tell you that your initial group post will at least have the textbook cited. If you use any outside resources or you're asked to use outside resources, please be sure to cite those as well at the end of your post. As far as your reflective journal, those guidelines are also posted in the course. I just want to point out a couple things. I understand that this is not due until week 15. However, it's essential that you keep up with it week to week, because if you wait until the end, you're going to get very overloaded with a lot of work to do. The journal itself should be typed. You can decide to start each week on a new sheet of paper, or you can keep it a running journal. All I need you to do if you keep a running journal is to make sure you do clearly delineate between weeks 1, weeks 2, and you can do it kind of like I did this paper, just on the left-hand side of the page, just type week 1 and underline it and do the work, and then when you get to week 2, you can underline it week 2. However you want to do it's fine, as long as I've got a clear delineation between the weeks. The actual journal itself should be turned in hard copy. It should be in a 1.5 inch to a 1 inch 3-ring binder. Any other type of folder will not be accepted. None of the paper folders. I need a 3-ring binder. And some weeks you're going to have a little more than other weeks. Some weeks will be short. Some weeks will be a little bit longer. Really read what I'm asking you each week. Some entries that I'll ask you will require 1 to 2 sentences. For example, week 1, I'm asking you to create your own definition of nursing informatics. About a sentence or 2. Other things might ask you to write just a little bit more. There are going to be weeks where I ask you to look up a journal related to a specific topic, a journal article related to a specific topic. When I do that, I want you to also include a copy of that article in your journal. So you'll have to print out a copy and put that in your journal as well. Also, in those weeks, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things with these articles. I'm going to ask you to give me a brief summary. And what that really means is give me 2 to 3 paragraphs of what the article was about. Let's think about this in the way of you and I are sitting at a table and you say, hey, Dr. Dykes, I just read this really cool article. It was about blank. Act like I've never read it and you're just explaining it to me. And then the second part will be your thoughts. And what I'm looking for there is rather than just regurgitating what the article was about, tell me kind of some meaning. What did it mean to you? So, for example, was it a useful article? How do you think you might apply it when you become a nurse? Or how can you apply it now as a nursing student? Was it a complete article or did it leave you with some further questions? Maybe you thought it was biased. Maybe it was written by a company who was writing about themselves in hopes that they can promote their own company. And then anything else you want to discuss. The key here is to make sure that you actually do pull an article from a scholarly journal. And if you go into the Georgia Southwestern Library and you go into Galileo and you search, there's actually a search bar that will allow you to check scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. If you select peer-reviewed journals, you're going to be picking one from the right place. Be very careful from things like Cosmopolitan, Late Home Journal. We're probably not going to find something interesting there. You'll also see some guidelines as far as how old the journals can be. Most of them will be less than 5 years old, so between 2011 and 2017, since we're just new into 2017. Again, read each week. Some will be longer, some will be shorter, but if you keep up with it every week, when you get to the end, it's just a matter of finishing up week 14 before it's due in week 15, and this again is worth 25% of your grade. The last thing I want to mention with regards to course assignments is going to be your group project. And you're going to be working in the same group as you are with the weekly discussions. And that group project will be due in week 16. And if you look at it, it's actually going to be done during the same time you would normally have a final exam. So in essence, this group project will kind of serve as your final exam. I am still working on the fine details related to this group project. I have the topics, but I will get all of those to you next week along with the details. So we'll postpone talking about that until next week. Okay, so let's be honest. It's the first day of class and your teacher doesn't show up. That's probably one of the best days you've had in classes when you get there and the teacher's just not there. So what do I want you to do, being that I'm not there today? Well, the first thing I want you to do is look at the calendar and realize that you have a syllabus acceptance quiz that's due this week. Go ahead and log into a computer and take care of getting that done. It's only one question, it's true or false, and it's actually counted in your weekly quizzes. So here's your first grade. After today, everybody should have 100 in the course. Then I want you to break off and work in your groups. Go into the course, find out who your group members are, take some time to sit down, look at the discussions that are due next week, for next week, the ones that are due by Wednesday of this week, but they're for next week. Look at the discussions, and then make a game plan for how you're going to work the rest of the semester with this group getting these discussions done. One thing I didn't mention earlier when it comes to the amount of work that we're doing in the course and these discussions is that this course meets from 1 o'clock to 3:45. That's an awful long time for you to be staring at me and me to be talking nonstop. Although I've been known to talk quite well for 2.5, 3 hours, that can be a long time to talk about informatics. So the reason I developed this course with weekly discussions that are done in groups is because I anticipate that we're going to actually get done with the lecture component of the course no later than 3 o'clock every day. That will give you from 3 o'clock to 3:45, because you're already planning to be on campus, to sit down with your group. And I hope that helps you because I realize that people are driving in from different directions and longer distances to come to campus, which can kind of make it difficult to meet in groups at the same time. So you're going to be able to use a good 45 minutes and sometimes longer of the end of class to be working on these weekly discussions. I had originally thought about having them due on Tuesday night, but realizing that sometimes things can take a little bit longer, people want to edit things, I went ahead and made them due on Wednesday, but take the time on Tuesday to work on them. Again, they're due by Wednesday, so you should have plenty of time after class hopefully to help you with that. Then I've also posted some stuff in the course for this week for chapter 1. There's a couple of videos to watch. There's a couple articles that I'd like you to read, kind of giving you a good introduction to informatics, managing healthcare and healthcare information, why you need to take this course, why it's so important for BSN students. But when you get the time, go ahead and look over that before next week. And then finally, go back and look at the course materials. Look at the syllabus, look at the calendar, the discussion guidelines, the journal guidelines. I haven't gotten outside of week 1 just yet with the content. I will have that up before week 2. So when I come back next week, we'll kind of revisit chapter 1 just a little bit to touch on some high points. Then we'll move into chapters 2 and 3. Well, I think I've covered everything I need to cover for the introduction. And if I forgot something, it's about 1:30 in the morning now, so I probably won't remember what it is until after I go to bed. So if I've forgotten something or I've confused you, please let me know, or you can jot it down and we will talk about it more when we come to class next week. In the meantime, work with your groups, get those discussions up. Remember that next week we start the class off with a weekly quiz. The quiz will be based on the discussions that you post this week, so make sure that you're posting thorough answers to your discussions. I actually will create the quiz after the discussions are posted and after I've seen all the responses go back and forth. So make sure when you're reading those discussions that you read those all the way up until probably Monday, because you want to make sure that you've gotten all of the initial posts, the replies, and any possible thing that I might reply back. I will make sure that I reply no later than Saturday night if I'm going to reply. That way you'll be able to have a full view of what you're going to be studying. So I will see everybody next week, and in the meantime, stay nice and warm.